welcome. I'm Adam Clayton Powell III, your moderator today for this program, centering on the play Things Fall Apart, written by Chinowa Achebe and performed by the Performance Studio Workshop of Nigeria. On behalf of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and the Prince William County Public Schools, I would like to welcome all the students viewing this discussion and live performance, students in classrooms all over the country, watching by satellite, and those here in the auditorium of Hylton High School in Prince William County, Virginia. I'm glad you could join us. Also joining us today is Chuck Mike, the director of the production of Things Fall Apart. Thank you for joining us, Chuck.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Why did you choose to bring to the stage this play, Things Fall Apart, adapted from the novel by Chinowa Achebe?
Well, basically because it's a good story. It's a very good story, and as a theater director, you want good material to work with. It seems as though it's about an individual, but there are larger implications. It's the story of the maiden contact between Europe and Africa in about the early 1900s. And we know very little about Africa, and the only images that I grew up with were images like Tarzan, and that people there swung in trees. And we know that's not true. In fact, I had an aunt who said to me when I was going to Africa in 1976 that, "Junior, what you want to go to Africa for?" I said, "Well, I'm curious, I want to go." She said, "Be careful, they eat people there. I'm here, and all of me is whole, nobody ate me." And it's that kind of thing, I think, that one wants to deal with in putting out wholesome images. And in my own personal journey there, as an African-American living there, was also to share the kinds of images about our people here, the wholesome images you may find in plays like Fences and Raisin. And it's been that kind of a personal journey. I think when people get correct images, they get a greater understanding of one another, and therefore we can appreciate cultures and interact with more positiveness. Telling good stories, it's what aids that factor, and Things Fall Apart is a very good story. That's why I wanted to get involved in the project.
The author of Things Fall Apart, Chinowa Achebe, was unable to be with us today, but we were able to interview him and get his perspective as the writer of the novel, adapted to the stage by B. Bandele. Mr. Achebe's novel was written in 1958, and 4 decades later, it is still the #1 selling African novel in the world. Here are some excerpts from our interview with the author.
Chinowa Achebe, on behalf of the Kennedy Center and Prince William Network of the Performing Arts Series, I want to thank you for welcoming us into your home and doing this interview with us.
You are most welcome. I'm glad to be doing this, and I wish we were at the Kennedy Center itself, but you are most welcome.
My first question is, what was the situation in the 1950s that drove you to take up the pen and write your first novel, Things Fall Apart?
Well, I wasn't driven to write it. I enjoyed writing it. But there were certain factors that were at work in my life and in my environment. One of them, the most important, was that I was aware that my story was missing. I had gone to school, I had gone to college, and I had read books and read stories, but none of that was really my story. And I was just the kind of person who loved stories. And so that lack, that fact that I wasn't in the story of the world, troubled me a lot. And I don't want it to sound like something painful, because it only meant that there was this excitement to do something about it. And since I was that way inclined anyway, if I didn't have that reason, I would have had some other reason to do it. Because I knew instinctively that stories were important. So it was no pain. It was a joy to attempt to tell my own story.
Well, But there is still the question that after reading the novel, some young American students still see the actions in the story through the lens of primitivism and cultural foreignness. How would you redirect their thinking about the novel and about traditional African culture?
Well, that's a very important question. I think this is really the job of the teachers. I think the problem in the world today is that people always think of Africa as primitive and exotic. And once the word Africa is mentioned, all kinds of images spring up in people's minds. And all I keep saying is that Africa is people. There's nothing extraordinary about Africa. Africa is just people. This is what I say. And if teachers learn to say this to their students, I think they would have done a lot of good work, and not just for Africa, but for the world.
I think that's brilliant what he's saying, is that I've never actually met this man, and it's ironic that I think there's a shared feeling on these issues between himself, myself, and B. Brandele, who did the adaptation, because we're all concerned about having an accurate story told. We think that's what makes the world go round in a better way. Yeah.
And the story in Things Fall Apart concentrates on the life of the main character, Okonkwo, but you've chosen 3 excerpts to share with us today that show group or community scenes. Can you tell us the significance of your decision?
Yeah, you're quite right. Okonkwo is a central character, and the story is really about his rise and fall and his own problems, his conflicts with his own traditional tenets, and he gets exiled, and the coming of the white man doesn't help that situation because he can't change, he can't adapt, and as a consequence, he takes his own life. He hangs himself, and that's an abomination. Now that abomination, that abominable act, is significant to the community. And I think the point here is that no one individual is above the community. And I think if we look at the community as an icon, we'll find that there are elements there that we can all recognize as familiar, and that people are the same. It's just that the shades and their colors and their stories differ a bit.
Tell us a bit about this first scene that we're about to see and why you chose it.
Oh, this is one of my favorite scenes. It's an insight into the judicial systems that took place in that society at the time. It's a simple domestic dispute with all the airs and colors of courtroom drama as we would recognize it here. You have a plaintiff, you have a defendant, you have each one making his case, citing the laws of the land. You have spectators, you have witnesses are called, there's some deliberation, and there's an actual judgment. I think the distinction here is that you'll see that there are masked characters who are called egugu, and these people represent the ancestors, and the ancestors are held in very high esteem, and that empowers them to be able to sit and judge over others. Incidentally, they're brought from various villages around, so there's real honesty and fair play in what it is you're about to see. So let's take a look at it.
Okonkwo's wives might have noticed that the second ancestral spirit had the springly walk of Okonkwo. They might have also noticed that Okonkwo was not among the titled men and elders who sat behind the row of the 2 spirits.
Uzowulu's body, I salute you.
Our father, my hand has touched the ground.
Uzowulu's body, do you know me?
How can I know you, father? You are beyond our knowledge.
The body of Odukwe, I greet you. Let the trial begin.
That woman standing there is my wife, Umafo.
Yes.
I married her with my money and my yams. I do not owe my in-laws anything. I owe them no yams, and I owe them no cocoyams. One morning, 3 of them came to my house, beat me up and took my wife and children away. This happened in the rainy season. I have waited in vain for my wife to return. At last, I went to my in-laws, and I said to them, you have taken back your sister. I did not send her away. Hey. You yourselves took her.
See you.
The law of the land is that you should return her bride price.
Yes.
But my wife's brothers said they had nothing to tell me. So I have brought the matter before the elders of the land. My case is finished, though. I salute you.
Your words are good, Uzo Wulu. Let us hear Odukwe. His words may also be good.
My in-law has told you that we went to his house, beat him up, and took our sister and her children away. All that is true. He also told you he came to take back her bride price, and we refused to give it him. That also is true. My in-law, Uzowulu, is a beast. My sister lived with him for 9 years. During those 9 years, not a single day passed in the sky without his beating a woman.
It is a lie!
We tried to settle the quarrel time without number, and on each occasion, Uzowulu was guilty.
It is a lie!
Hey! 2 years ago, when she was pregnant, he beat her until she miscarried.
Ha! It is a lie! She miscarried after she had gone to sleep with her lover.
Hey!
Uzowulu's body, I salute you.
My hands are on the ground, Father.
What kind of a lover sleeps with a pregnant woman?
Last year, when my sister was recovering from an illness, he beat her so that if the neighbors had not come in to save her, she would have been killed. We heard of it and did as you have been told. The law of Umofia is that if a woman runs away from her husband, her bride price is returned. But in this case, she ran away to save her life. The children belong to Uzowulu. We do not dispute it. But they are too young to leave their mother. If, on the other hand, Uzowulu should recover from his madness and come in a proper way to beg his wife to return, she will do so on the understanding that if he ever beats her again, we shall cut off his genitals. Go on!
2 witnesses were called, both Uzowulu's neighbors. They agreed to the beating. The 3 Egungun then went inside to consult together in their house. They were silent for a long time. Then they emerged once again.
Mafia Colonel!
Yeah!
We have heard both sides of the case. Our duty is not to blame this man or praise that, but to settle the dispute. Uzowulu's body. Do you know me?
How can I know you, Father? You are beyond our knowledge.
I am Evil Forest. I kill a man on the day his life is sweetest to him.
That is true.
Go to your in-law with a pot of wine and beg your wife to return to you. It is not bravery when a man fights with a woman. The body of Odukwe, I greet you.
My hand is on the ground.
Do you know me?
No man can know you.
I am Evil Forest. I am dry meat that fills the mouth. I am fire that burns without fagots. If your in-law brings wine to you, let your sister go with him. I salute you. Mafia Colonel!
Yeah.
Next!
Chuck, this scene from Things Fall Apart was a trial, to be sure, but it was very different from trials that are familiar to us in the U.S. What are some of the similarities and differences of popular ceremonies between life here in the United States and in Nigeria?
I think essentially the formats are the same. It's that the colors, the shades of delivery are the things which may be different. I mean, we're looking at the same issues, life cycle events. They cause us to celebrate. Marriage, our families come together, we have the ceremony, and we go and perhaps there's some feast. Birth, maybe we come together and we celebrate again. In death, if the person is old, we do gather together and we celebrate. But the issue is that there is some celebration. I think the scope of that celebration is determined by what kind of finance it is that you have. But there is a penchant to bring people together in that society. There's a penchant for people to want to come together. In fact, one of the characters in the play says that when we gather under the moonlit sky, it is not to see the moon. We can all see the moon in our own compounds. When we gather to eat food, it is not to just eat food. We gather because we all want to get together. In other words, it's good for people to get together. It's good for kinsmen to meet. And in this next scene, you're going to see a funeral. It's a funeral of an elderly person, and that's a place where the clan does come out, and it does gather. It gathers in his honor. So let's take a look at that.
Place. Let's see the next scene from Things Fall Apart.
If you have been poor in your last life, I will have asked you to get life when you come again. But you were rich. Oh, Gwefi, if you have to get life when you come again, but you were a fearless warrior. If you have died young, I will have asked you to get more life when you come again. But you live long, so I shall ask you to come again the way you came before. If your death was the death of nature, go in peace. But if a man cursed it, do not allow him a moment's rest.
It was the dead man's 16-year-old son, who with his brothers and half-brothers had been dancing the traditional farewell to his father. Okonkwo's gun had exploded, and a piece of iron had pierced the boy's heart. The confusion that followed was without parallel in the tradition of Umuofia. Violent deaths were frequent, but nothing like this had ever happened. The only course left to Okonkwo was to flee from the land. It was a crime against the earth goddess to kill a clansman, and a man who committed it must flee from the land. The crime was of two kinds, male and female. Okonkwo had committed the female because it had been inadvertent, and so he could return after 7 years. Before the cock crow, Okonkwo and his family were fleeing to his motherland. It was a little village called Mbanta, just beyond the borders of Mbano.
Most of that scene showed a celebration. Funerals here in the United States traditionally are mournful events, but in the play, this funeral portrayed a celebration. Why is that?
Well, as I suggested earlier, it's believed that an elderly person, of which this man was, when an elderly person has led a full life, he's had a good life, he should be sent out with fanfare. It's not a mournful event. But in this particular case, this elder was a warrior, and as an elder statesman, as someone who fought for his community, he was also honored. That's why you see the swords clanging and the guns going off, much like what you probably have right here in Arlington Cemetery when a soldier is put away. You know.
The 21-gun salute.
That's right.
We're now going to see a third excerpt, but it's going to be a little different. I wondered, Chuck, if you could tell us how it relates to what we've seen so far. The first two scenes that we've seen showed an ordered society. Now I wonder if you can explain how things fall apart.
Right. I think generally that historically societies have tried to conquer one another for one reason or the other. I mean, we have the case of the Roman Empire. You have the Native American Indians right here in America. And knowing human nature as I do, the differences between us really prompt us towards conquering that other society. I'm sure if you and I weren't the same height, but we are almost, the different color of your eyes would be a reason for you to fear me or to misunderstand me, and therefore I might be subject to being conquered by you. And as a result, I think if we had more information about each other, it breeds more understanding, and then we'd negotiate with other cultures rather than attempt to destroy them. We'd appreciate other cultures rather than fear them. And I think Things Fall Apart makes that message very loud and clear. I remember when we did a performance of this in Leeds in the UK, there were colonialists who were part of this era who actually came back to some of us very quietly and said, we didn't know. We didn't know this kind of system existed. We didn't know such sophisticated structures were on ground. And had we known, perhaps we would have thought differently about what it is that we did. I think in the next scene, what you're going to see is Oberika, the storyteller, relate the story of how the white man first came and some of the destruction that took place at that point in time. So please.
Let's see the third excerpt from Things Fall Apart.
During the last planting season, a white man had appeared in Abame.
An albino?
Not an albino, he was quite different. He was riding an iron horse. And the first people who saw him ran away. But he stood, beckoning to them. In the end, the fearless ones went near and even touched him. The elders went to consult the oracle, and he told them that the strange man would break their clan and spread destruction among them. killed the white man and tied up his iron horse because it looked as if it would run away to call the man's friends.
So, what did the white man say before they killed him?
He said nothing. Not a word.
He said something, only they didn't understand him. He seemed to speak through his nose.
One of the men told me that he repeated over and over again a word that sounded like Mbaino. Perhaps he was going to Mbaino and lost his way.
Anyway, they killed him and tied up his iron horse. This was before the planting season began. For a long time, nothing happened. The rains had come and yams had been sown. The iron horse was tied to their sacred silk cotton tree. And then one morning, 3 white men, led by a band of men like us, came to the clan. They saw the iron horse and then went away again. Most of the men and women of Abame had gone to their farms. Only a few of them saw the white men and their followers. For many market weeks, nothing happened. There was a big market in Abame every other Afro day. The whole clan was gathered there. That was the day it happened. The 3 white men, led by a band of other men, surrounded the market. They must have used a powerful medicine to make themselves invisible until the market was full. And they began to shoot. Everyone was killed, except for the sick and old who were at home, and a handful of men and women whose chi were wide awake and brought them out of that market. Their clan is now completely empty. Even the sacred fish in their mysterious lake have fled, and the lake has turned the color of blood. A great evil has come upon their people, as the gods had warned.
In Things Fall Apart in the play, there are proverbs throughout which are used as a creative means of communication. Chuck, we've also seen 2 excerpts that incorporate theatrical devices such as music, movement, mime. What's the importance of these elements, and why did you choose them to help tell this story?
Adam, have you eaten yam before?
Yes, even in Nigeria.
Have you eaten it with palm oil?
Oh, yes.
It's very sweet. And there's a line in the play that says, "Proverbs are the palm oil with which words are eaten." And basically what we're saying is if you want people to appreciate what it is you have to say, want people to appreciate images, sweeten them. Use palm oil. The palm oil for us, in this instance, is song, dance, music, and mime. And our company, the Performance Studio Workshop, specializes in what we call theater for development, using alternative communication by using cultural values such as these elements, these theatrical elements that we spoke of. And in doing so, we've been able to look at Nigeria and find out it's a very, very diverse country. You have over 250 different ethnic groups. So what one language do you want to speak to convey to so many people? So these languages then become useful in getting messages across to people who would not otherwise understand what you were saying in one language. And as such, we've been able to carry out experiments in the area of, let's say, immunization, where the company comes in with song, dance, and music and is able to mobilize people. And while we're entertaining them, the health workers are giving them immunization at the same time. So it's been useful there, and also getting people to look at their community and see what they can do about it. We've seen roads be built, we've seen cooperatives be formed, and people alleviate their own poverty by using these very same elements to seduce them with theater and with messages. I think Things Fall Apart as a story, as a serious cultural story, has to have those kinds of values. It comes from that society, those elements are there. So it's a natural usage of what you probably want to call a persuasive edutainment or inter-education.
Let's talk a bit more about the context. What is life like today in Nigeria?
Maybe I should put that to the company and let them answer that question.
Let's have them introduce themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. My name's Marcia Hewitt, and I'm from London, England, and I'm of Jamaican parentage.
Hi, I'm Yomi A. Michaels. I was born in Britain. My parents are Nigerian, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
My name is Mary Udofia. I am from the southeastern part of Nigeria.
I'm Chukwuma Okoye from the southeastern part of Nigeria, an Igbo man.
My name is Tosai Dremuda Ogbeye, and I'm from Nigeria and the western part of Nigeria, midwestern part of Nigeria, and I live in Lagos.
My name's Freddie Annabelle Dodu. I'm from London, and my parents are from Ghana.
My name's Antonia Olukemi Koka. I'm born and brought up in Britain. I'm Nigerian.
My name's Stephen Blakegrove, Jamaican parentage, born in England. And I'm very happy to be here.
I am Obiageli Molube. I am from Nigeria, and I am an Igbo woman.
My name is Anietie Stephen Akpan. I'm from Southeast Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian, born in Nigeria, bred there. I'm happy to be with you.
Ombo Gugu Ombo is my name. I'm from the southeastern part of Nigeria. I live in Nigeria.
My name is Tony Oshinaike. I'm from the western part of Nigeria.
My name is Tristan Sharps. I was born in London of Russian and Scots parentage.
Okay, who'd like to talk about life in Nigeria? I think that's the essential question. Yeah, Tosin.
Let me just, what is life like in Nigeria? Well, it depends from what perspective you're looking at it from. I'm a teacher, I'm a mom, and life now is harder than it was when I was a child. We're in the midst of a fight, like an economic depression, and so money is not there as one would like. So however much money you make, it's never enough. And I don't know, what else? Chooks?
Well, life in Nigeria, in a word, is tough. But then, everybody's going to ask, where is life easy? I would say life in general is never easy, whether Nigeria or anywhere else. But I think we have a few peculiar problems, particularly the political and the economic problems that we face now. But in general, I would say the quality of life in Nigeria is exciting because of the wealth of our cultural heritage, which enlivens our life. I would say that I am a Nigerian, and I enjoy being a Nigerian, and I would say that life in Nigeria is absolutely exciting, when we look at it from that point of view. Thank you.
Let's hear how the author of Things Fall Apart, Chinowa Achebe, answered this same question.
There are a lot of problems taking place in Africa today, some of them attributed to leaders who are not so correct or so beneficial to the people. Would you say that African writers have a way of helping Africans understand their situation in Africa today in a way that's helpful and positive?
I think we do what we can. Literature is an important component in building our nations. It's not the only way. It's simply one of the aids. And a writer has that's the weapon you have. That's the tool. There's a contribution you can make. And but the problems of Africa are complex, and some of it derives from our history, the recent history of pain. I'm thinking of colonization, I'm thinking of slavery, and so on. I know it's not fashionable today to go back to these causes, but they're there. And some of them are only now playing out. There are other reasons as well, like the failure of our leaders and not just political leaders, but all kinds of leaders, teachers and professionals. I think we have all failed in certain ways, but again, we should not despair. I think we should pick ourselves up and keep going. There are actually some good stories out of Africa. The problem is that we neglect them. We rely on the media who are there for the bad news. And so you hear nothing but bad news. But if you go to Africa, you'll actually see a lot that is happening, that is positive, that is encouraging. And I think we should make an effort to find those particular stories and not go just for the bad ones.
Yes. You travel back and forth between teaching in Africa and teaching in America, like you're doing right now at Bard College. What is the most crucial goal of your teaching in each context?
Well, I like to see myself, my work, as initiating conversation between cultures. And so when I'm here, I'm telling the American children and American people about Africa. And when I go to Africa, I tell them about America. And this is really what we should be doing. You know, we should be talking to one another instead of staying in our corner and sulking. I think we should initiate conversation.
What do you hope the novel is saying to students today, Things Fall Apart?
Well, I think it might be saying two things. First is it's a story, and I hope it's a good story. Just that fact, you're reading a story, because our human nature somehow finds stories extremely attractive. The second thing is that it's a story that is different from the stories that, if you take this country, for instance, that the students are familiar with. It is something new and different. It's a dimension of experience which they wouldn't have got from reading American stories, and that's useful. That's extremely important because the world is big, and one of the most important things we must keep stressing is the great diversity, the multiplicity of things in the world. So people don't think, oh, I know it all. This is the way we do it. That's it. That's the only way. You have to get people out of that way of thinking, because it not only is it wrong, it's dangerous. If you think how complex the world is, very soon you'll find somebody who will say, "Who told you that?" And there'll be conflict. And so I think that's what I want to do, to bring to my readers a dimension of experience which they may not be familiar with. And then to my own people, for instance, to the African children, to bring the experience they are familiar with to them in the form of a book and a story, so they know they too have a story. That the stories worth told are not simply the stories told by Europeans or Americans, but that we also have our stories. So there's a very, very complex aspiration that a writer may have in presenting a story like Things Fall Apart to his readers.
Chuck, how complex was it for you and your colleagues to bring the play Things Fall Apart to the stage?
Well, it's been about a 4-year process as of these performances that we're in now. It's a multicultural, intercultural production, as you can see, and there are different experiences that have been brought to bear from each of the participants. We've had workshops in Nigeria as well as in the UK. And I think from casting to performance, there's been this attempt to create a community of people. And this is done solely by choosing the right people. It's like cooking soup. You want to make sure you get the right condiments. And you're looking for, in this kind of play, the kinds of people who have the right spirits, the right dispositions, and the right attitudes to the material that you have at hand. And that comes across clearly with the people that I have here. And you want to just create an atmosphere in which their talents can flourish. Now, this has been particularly easy if I relate this to some of the things that I've heard earlier and also from Chinowa Achebe, and that is that I have a dominant Nigerian cast. And in that society, people are resilient. People are also, they have a certain fortitude. I think whatever our problems have been there, they've made us stronger, and they give us the will and the strength to move into any circumstance and overcome it. And that makes this kind of experience extremely easy for me, especially with our colleagues and the type of people that we've gotten from the UK as well. So the complexities have been made simple by the kinds of people that I've had to work with.
Now it's your turn to help stir the condiments. For those of you who are watching us live around the country, there's an 800 number you can call, 1-800-578-1396. Once again, 1-800-578-1396. And while we're waiting for calls, Chuck, we've spent some time talking about the need to tell people stories. Where will the story, Things Fall Apart, be performed?
Well, right now we're at the Kennedy Center, and we're there until Sunday, after which we go to the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, for those of you who can get to New Jersey and miss it here. Then we're going to Princeton, New Jersey, the McCarter Theater, after which we go to Aaron Davis Hall in New York, in Harlem, and then to New World Theater in Amherst, Massachusetts. And then we have a 5-week tour back in the UK. I'm getting tired just talking about it. Then finally, Things Fall Apart comes home to Nigeria the week of April 12th. So it's a long tour in front of us.
Is that a problem for you in Nigeria? We read about censorship and problems with writers and artists and editors being jailed as recently as last year.
No, I don't think. I think bringing this production home is really not a problem. It's part and parcel of our cultural package there. But I do agree with you that there are some innuendos politically that are going on now. I think people would like to have more of a say in what's going on and how our government will move to its next political phase. We're facing democracy now, and it's not an easy task. And I think everybody wants to contribute towards that. So we're looking for avenues in which more people can sit down to the table and really discuss whatever is on their mind about that process.
We have a question here in the audience.
Yes, hello, my name is Stuart White. I'm from Garfield High School, and I was wondering what is the most difficult aspect of producing the play?
Getting the money. No, I mean, getting the materials too. It's not just about the money. It's getting the materials, getting the right people, getting the atmosphere that really allows the work to grow properly. I think is that correct? Yeah, I see this.
If you're watching us around the country, the telephone number to call is 1-800-578-1396, and we have a caller now from Columbus, Georgia. Hello, and what's your question?
Hi, this question is for the cast. I just wanted to know what kind of formal training they took part in, or just to get into character, what they did in order to portray their part.
Okay, I was trained in London. I've had about 5 years training. I started off as a dancer, and for this play, that has helped enormously, the fact that I had a dancing background and singing background as well. So I've had quite a long training.
Yeah, well, I think that it's not so much as regarding our background. I think most of us have backgrounds in the theater, and so that's a good preparation. And familiarity with the text is also good preparation to be very familiar with the kind of background you're trying to portray. the society you're talking about. I think that's basically the kind of preparation that most people did.
I think for me, what was really important was when we went to Nigeria. And when we went to Nigeria, we actually got first-hand with the accents and the right accents as well, which was pretty important because anyone, I suppose, could do a very broad African accent, but it's pinpointing it down, which I felt was really important.
I think that wraps it up. Our number again, 1-800-578-1396. And we have another question here in the audience.
I'm Sean Reynolds from Garfield. I was wondering, as you were creating and developing the play, if there's like one major question you'd like to ask Mr. Achebe about how he did it all. Maybe.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. If there was one major question I wanted to ask him, that's interesting. No serious question really emerged to ask him in the process of doing it. You know, the play was adapted by B. Bandele. So we started improvising around some of the ideas to jumpstart the actual play script of the play. We all knew the play, and we all knew the novel. We're very conversant with the material. So there wasn't really one that one wanted to ask him. I had his kinsman here. And there wasn't. Sometimes you try to distance yourself. I mean, for example, when we started the process, many of the members of the company quickly went to read the novel. I'd read it, almost 2 decades ago, but I didn't want to go back to it. I wanted to take the experience from where it was starting and generate what we could. I'm very interested in finding out how he feels about the production. I mean, I am seeking approval. So that's probably what I'll be looking for in the end.
Thank you. Our telephone number again for questions, 1-800-578-1396. And we have a question now from Rosa Park, New Jersey. Hello, what's your question?
Hi, my question is for Mr. Mike. My name is Chris Irving, and I'm a student at Rosa Parks Performing Arts High School. I was just wondering, what is your motivation for doing the show?
As I said earlier, my motivation is that I'm an artist, and I'm a director. My motivation is that it's good work. It's a good story, and we all want to handle good material. The other motivation is that it's also part and parcel of my history. I'm an African American, and I'm also a Nigerian. I mean, I've been given a wife and children there, so they can't reject me. so it's also my story, and I feel good about being able to share that with you and with others as well.
Thank you. We have another question here in the audience.
Hello, my name is Myra Franklin, and I'm from Garfield Senior High School. I was just wondering, what is your favorite moment in the play and why?
Oh, I have that. I know what my favorite moment is. It's the moment in the play when the character Obierika, who is the storyteller who you've met, talks with the white man, Reverend Brown. And they have a dialogue about their 2 different cultures and the way that they both view God. And that's absolutely my favorite part. He says to him, "This is an idol. Can't you see that it's an idol?" And Obierika says, "Yes." No, he says, "This is wood, an idol made out of wood." And Obierika answers that, yes, it is made of wood, but this wood was made by God. And then they go on to expound their different views. That's my favorite moment. Anybody else?
Thank you. We have another question here in the audience.
Yes, my name is Joe Hunter, and I attend Garfield High School. And I was wondering, when the play is performed in Nigeria, what language would it be spoken in by the performers?
English. We'll perform it in English. Our company has performed in other languages, by the way, but it will be performed in English because, like Nigerian, it's English-speaking country. Yeah.
What are some of the other languages you performed in?
We performed in Yoruba. We performed in derivatives of English. There's something called broken English, pidgin English. We've done smidgens of work in Hausa and also in Igbo.
Let's go to another question here in the audience.
Hi, my name is Tasha Bunch, and I also attend Garfield High School. I was wondering, are the songs and dances in this piece traditional Nigerian pieces?
Well, I guess in terms of style, I'll say they're all traditional Nigerian pieces. But quite a number of them were composed basically for this performance. And then about a few others are folk tunes, which lyrics we had to change, to conform with the script. And then one particular song is a folk song.
Thank you very much. We have another call now from New Jersey, a question from Freehold, New Jersey. Hello, and what's your question?
I would like to know what's the most important lesson that Mr. Mike has, the most important lesson that you can learn from this play.
I think the most important thing that you can learn from this play is to view people as you view yourself. Okay. Cultures are different, but there's an underlying humanity that I think we all need to observe and respect, and that will let all of us get along a lot better. I think in terms of the dynamics of the play, I think what you can get from it is simply that art can be used to convey just about anything, and in a very persuasive way.
Okay, thank you.
Our phone number again for callers from around the country, 1-800-578-1396. Let's go to another question here in the audience.
I'm Jason McCarthy from Garfield, and I was wondering if anything from the original story was lost when you had to adapt it to the stage.
Good question. I can't take brief for the adaptation. It was done by B. Bandeli, as I said earlier. But we do know that from the novel there are some things that were left out. And I think in the process of adapting a work, you just have to be selective and be creative in how you reutilize that material. But there were, it's a novel, it's a very long novel too, so there were some things that did have to come out. But I don't think, as we did the play, I don't think you really feel it. You don't feel that absence. This has a wholeness of its own, which I think works.
If you were to do the whole novel, the play would take several hours, probably.
It sure enough would.
We have another question here in the audience.
Hello, my name is Latoya Sharon, and I go to Woodbridge Senior High School. And I was wondering, in the relationship between the elders and the rest of the village, what do you hope to bring to American audiences with that?
Respect your elders. That's the bottom line.
Those the teachers
Respect your elders. I think that's the bottom line. And they're there to be revered. Yeah.
Yeah. I was also going to say that the elders should also strive to be respectful, because in the traditional culture, in the culture from which the performance is derived, elders are absolutely respectable because, number one, elders don't lie. Number two, elders don't cheat. So when you know that an elder will not lie and he's not going to cheat, then he automatically deserves absolute respect.
Thank you. Is that a theme that runs throughout Africa and not just Nigeria, about elders and respect?
I think so. I think dominantly, yes. Yes. Just about everywhere. But I venture to say that even right here, at least in my house, my parents, I respect I couldn't look my grandfather eye to eye. How many people here can look their grandparents eye to eye?
Some hands going up. This is...
Okay, how many of you really, really had to show some sign of respect, which is different from what you would give to your father or mother? Uh-huh. We're not too far apart, are we?
We're out of time for questions. We'd like to thank the Performance Studio Workshop of Nigeria for being with us, and to Chuck Mike, the director. Chuck, do you have any final thoughts to share with those who are watching?
No, I think most of it has been said. I hope people come away with a better understanding of Nigeria and how people are basically the same, and how stories are the same, and that art can play an important part in bringing about change. I'd also like to thank, on behalf of the company and myself, the Kennedy Center, and particularly its African Odyssey program, for opening up this kind of initiative so we can bridge these kinds of cultural gaps. I think they really deserve kudos, and this kind of programming should continue, especially the educational programming wing of it. So on behalf of myself and of the company, we say thank you for having us here.
Thank you. And We'd like to thank everyone in the audience for joining us today. You have enthusiastic fans. Thanks for joining us around the country by television and here in the audience. There are more opportunities for you to participate in the African Odyssey program. You can ask more questions of the performers via the internet for the next 2 weeks by email by using the address which you see on the screen now. In addition, if you want to participate in a live internet chat with Chuck Mike about Things Fall Apart, that will take place this Friday, February the 5th, from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You go to the next address on the screen, and you'll need to register there. Finally, you can download theater pages from Things Fall Apart at the third address you see on the screen now. And be sure to watch on February the 11th at the same time for the next program, which will feature the dance company Odyssey San Francisco in a performance and discussion. We're going to close now with another song taken from the play. Goodbye. We hope you enjoyed the program.
Sala, ezeli nelina, sala, ezeli kwaya, sala, ikwabak oligoli, sala, ebedanda nicheze, sala, ebuzuzu neteku, sala, ezeli nelina, sala, ezeli nelina, sala, ezeli kwaya, sala, ikwabak oligoli, sala, ebedanda nicheze, sala, ebuzuzu neteku, sala, ezeli nelina, sala, ezeli nelina, sala, ezeli kwaya, sala, ikwaba oligoli, sala, ebedanda nicheze, sala, ebuzuzu neteku, sala, ezeli nelina, sala, ezeli nelina, sala, ezeli kwaya, sala, ikwaba oligoli, sala, ebedanda nicheze, sala, ebuzuzu neteku.